Ryan's office revenge.
The CEO's son canceled my Tokyo flight midair. I was the only person the Japanese chairman would do business with. I read the email at 38,000 feet somewhere over the Pacific. United Flight 889 O'Hare to Narita, hour 4 of 13. The in-flight Wi-Fi had just connected. That little green light blinking on the seat back like it had something important to tell me. I'd ordered black coffee from the attendant, hadn't touched it yet. The subject line loaded first. Organizational update effective immediately. I read it twice. The body was 3 paragraphs. Corporate language, the kind that sounds like it was drafted by someone who thinks vocabulary is the same thing as authority. Words like strategic realignment and centralized communications architecture and effective upon receipt. Nowhere in the email did it say the word fired, but that's what it was. The timestamp said 6:47 a.m. Eastern. Brandon Hartwell had sent it from his office before most of the building had their lights on. He didn't copy his father William. He didn't copy the board. He didn't call me first. He sent an email to a man on a plane he'd already decided shouldn't be going where he was going. I adjusted my watch band tension, same motion I'd done for 20 years in the Corps when incoming intel required processing. The mechanism needed to turn, but not yet. My name is Roland Jennings. I'm 54 years old. I spent 20 years in the United States Marine Corps, enlisted at 18, made colonel before I retired. My specialty was force reconnaissance and Pacific operations. I was stationed at Okinawa for 6 years across 3 tours. Before that, I'd gone through the Defense Language Institute in Monterey, where they taught me Japanese, the way they teach you anything in the military. Fast, hard, and with the expectation that you'd use it under pressure. I left the Corps at 38 as a colonel, honorable discharge. 2 years of government contract work after that. Defense logistics mostly, boring and steady. Then Patriot Systems recruited me. Specifically, William Hartwell himself called me on a Tuesday, said he had a Japanese partner he needed someone to manage, someone who understood the Pacific theater, someone who could sit across from a 75-year-old admiral in Osaka and not embarrass the company. That was 16 years ago. I was 38. The partner was Yamamoto Heavy Industries. The chairman was Admiral Hiroshi Yamamoto, former Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force, and the relationship between Patriot and Yamamoto, a relationship now worth hundreds of millions in active contracts and over $2.1 billion in projected renewals, was built in conference rooms and tea houses and quiet hotel lobbies by 2 people. William Hartwell, who opened the door, and me, who walked through it and never left. William flew with me on the early trips. He'd sit in first class with a cigar he couldn't light and a bourbon he could, and he'd tell me I was the best investment the company ever made. He meant it. Back then, he meant everything he said. Back then, the company was still his, not a stage for someone else's ambitions. I closed the laptop. I picked up the coffee. It was bitter and burnt, and exactly what United always serves in Economy Plus, which is where Brandon's travel budget put you after he cut international per dimes 6 weeks ago. I drank it slow. I didn't call anyone. Not yet. 9 hours of Pacific Ocean still ahead of me. Nothing to do but sit with it, and I'm good at sitting with things. 20 years in the Corps teaches you that. You learn to hold a piece of information in your head without reacting to it. You learn that the first thing you feel is almost never the thing you should act on. What Brandon Hartwell didn't know could fill a filing cabinet. But one thing in particular was going to cost him $420 million. I need to tell you about what I gave up for this job because that's what Brandon was counting on. He figured the cost of walking away was too high for a man like me. He figured I was trapped. My ex-wife's name is Linda. Linda Morrison before she was Linda Jennings, before she went back to being Linda Morrison and then became someone else's wife entirely. We divorced 4 years ago. I was 50. The marriage didn't end because either of us was cruel. It ended because I was never there. I was in Osaka, I was in Tokyo. I was on a re-day back from a contract amendment meeting while Linda was making dinner for one again. She remarried, lives in Norfolk now. I don't begrudge her that. I pay her $1,600 a month in support, which is fair because she spent 18 years building a home I kept leaving. We have 2 sons, Marcus and Tyler. Marcus is 18, plays varsity baseball, heading to Virginia Tech in the fall. Tyler's 16, plays JV baseball, lives with Linda most of the time. I get alternating weekends and summer weeks, which sounds like a schedule and feels like a countdown. Every other Friday I drive to Norfolk and try to be a father in 48-hour increments. Tyler pitched his first varsity start 7 months ago. 5 innings, gave up 3 hits. Linda sent me the game film on my phone without a word. No comment, no accusation. She didn't need to say anything. I watched it in a hotel room in Osaka at 2 a.m., sitting on the edge of a bed that cost Patriot $310 a night before Brandon cut the travel budget, squinting at a screen while my kid threw fastballs to an empty seat behind home plate. That was the sacrifice, not one moment, 16 years of moments. Every flight, every meeting, every overnight in a country 14 time zones away, those hours came from somewhere. They came from Marcus. They came from Tyler. They came from Linda. They came from a life I kept choosing second. And I built something with those hours, something real. Admiral Yamamoto doesn't meet with companies. He meets with people. That's not a metaphor. It's a contractual fact. 8 years ago, Patriot and Yamamoto signed a master partnership agreement. I have the original signed copy given to me by William Hartwell himself at the signing dinner in Osaka. Section 9, paragraph C of that agreement contains what's called a named liaison clause. It stipulates that all primary communications, contract negotiations, and in-person meetings between the two companies shall be conducted through or approved by the designated relationship officer. The designated relationship officer is Colonel Roland Carter Jennings, Senior Director Pacific Operations. Any change to that designation requires 90 days written notice to Yamamoto Heavy Industries and written acknowledgement from the Admiral's office. Brandon never read Section 9. He never read any of it. Patriot's General Counsel, Helen Brennan, flagged it twice in writing. Both memos went to Brandon's desk. Brandon called it legacy friction. Now, let me tell you about Brandon. Brandon Michael Hartwell, age 29. He's William's son, graduated Harvard Business School 2 years ago. After graduation, Brandon spent 18 months at a Boston consulting firm called Innovation Partners. The firm handles digital transformation advocacy. No international clients, no foreign government relationships, no understanding whatsoever of how business works when the person across the table from you learned formality from a culture that invented it. After those 18 months, William installed Brandon as VP Strategy and Innovation. The title was created for him. It hadn't existed before. That was 11 months ago. 29 months of professional experience, a Harvard MBA, and a last name he inherited. I knew he was trouble the day he walked through the lobby with a MacBook under one arm and a vocabulary that sounded like a TED Talk gained sentience. Digital first, scalable outcomes, stakeholder optimization. He said these words the way some people say grace, automatically, without understanding what they're asking for. He introduced himself to me on his third day. I remember because he mentioned Harvard in his second sentence. I remember because he looked at my office, 2 doors down from Dennis Coleman's same-size window facing the parking lot, and something crossed his face. Not contempt exactly, categorization. He was sorting me, filing me away. 6 weeks before he sent that email, Brandon killed all international travel budgets, every department, effective immediately. He sent a company-wide memo about modernizing the approach and centralizing communications digitally. I filed one written objection through proper channels. It went to Helen Brennan's office, then to Brandon's desk. It was dismissed. I absorbed it. I said nothing publicly. I adjusted. That's what you do when you've spent 20 years in the Corps. You watch the current. You note the heading. You don't steer into a storm you can't win in the moment. But I knew what the travel freeze meant for the Yamamoto relationship. Admiral Yamamoto was 75 years old. He conducted business in person. He measured commitment by presence. You didn't send an email to Hiroshi Yamamoto. You flew to Osaka. You sat across from him. You presented your card with both hands. You waited for him to speak first. You pronounced his name correctly, Yamamoto, because he would hear the difference and he would remember. The seasonal greeting mattered too. In October, you acknowledged the changing leaves, the crisp air, the transition into autumn. It wasn't small talk. It was recognition that business relationships exist within the flow of time, within the rhythms that connect us to something larger than quarterly reports. I knew all of this because I had spent 16 years learning it, and 6 years before that living in the country that taught it. Brandon Hartwell knew none of it, and he didn't think he needed to. The morning I boarded that flight to Tokyo, the one he canceled underneath me, I was going to meet with Yamamoto's deputy to prepare for the contract renewal, $20 in dollars and $400 in dollars. The renewal meeting was scheduled 10 days out. Admiral Yamamoto himself was flying to the United States for it. He doesn't do that for paperwork. He does that for relationships, for the person across the table. And then at 38,000 feet, the email, organizational update effective immediately. Brandon's office contacted the airline through Patriot's corporate travel account and canceled my return ticket, just the return leg, as if stranding the justification for the trip would strand me with it. I completed the flight. I landed at Narita. I took the train into the city. I met quietly with Yamamoto's deputy, a man named Sato, whom I'd known for 10 years, and explained the situation with the only thing I had left to offer, the truth. I told him I had been terminated. I told him I did not know what Patriot would do next. I told him I was sorry. Sato listened. He nodded once. He said he would inform the Admiral. I bought my own return ticket, my own credit card, $2,187. I didn't expense it. There was no one to expense it to. I landed at Dulles on a Wednesday evening, took a cab home, dropped my bag in the hallway. My apartment smelled like old coffee and silence. I sat down at the kitchen table. I opened my laptop. I pulled up the only document that mattered. The original Patriot Yamamoto Master Partnership Agreement, the signed copy, the one William Hartwell had handed me himself at a dinner in Osaka 8 years ago, shaking my hand, telling me to keep it safe because it represented everything we'd built together. I turned to Section 9, Paragraph C. I adjusted my watch band tension again. The mechanism was starting to turn. Then I picked up the phone and called Captain James Mueller. James and I served together in Force Recon, 2nd Battalion, stationed at Camp Pendleton, and later Okinawa. He was a communications officer, same rank as me. We spent 3 years on those bases. That was 20 years ago. Now he's a licensed attorney in Virginia. Military contracts and employment law. He's the kind of friend you don't talk to for 3 months and then call at 10 p.m. On a Wednesday, and he picks up before the second ring. He picked up before the second ring. Roland, James, I need you to look at something. I heard him set down a glass. Bourbon, probably. James never lost the taste. Talk to me. I read him the termination email. Then I read him Section 9, Paragraph C, the named liaison clause, the 90-day written notice requirement, the mandatory written acknowledgement from the Admiral's office. James was quiet for 8 seconds, I counted. He didn't send notice to Yamamoto, he said. No, didn't get acknowledgement from the Admiral's office. No. Roland, this isn't just a breach of your employment terms. This is a breach of the partnership agreement itself. Yamamoto has the contractual right to void the pending renewal without penalty. I know you have grounds for wrongful termination, tortious interference with the partnership agreement. I could file by Friday. I looked at the kitchen table, at the agreement, at William's signature on the last page next to mine. No, I said, don't file anything. Not yet. Silence. Roland, what are you doing? I closed the agreement, set it back in the folder. Put the folder in the bottom drawer of the desk where I keep the things that matter. I'm letting the mechanism work. 10 days, that's how long it took for the mechanism to work. I didn't call Patriot. I didn't call William. I didn't post anything. Didn't send a letter. Didn't hire James to file the wrongful termination claim he had ready to go by that Friday morning. I sat in my apartment in Virginia Beach and I waited. I drove to Norfolk that weekend for my Friday with Tyler. We threw a baseball in the backyard for an hour. He asked me why I was home on a weekday. Work change, I said. Good change or bad change. I caught the ball, held it. His mechanics were solid. Full shoulder turn, proper follow-through. The kind of precision you can't fake under pressure. Ask me in 2 weeks. He nodded. 16 years old and already smart enough to hear what I wasn't saying. He gets that from Linda. I drove home Sunday night. Monday, I did nothing. Tuesday, I did nothing. Wednesday, Dennis Coleman showed up at my apartment at 7:15 a.m., holding a manila envelope and 2 cups of gas station coffee. Dennis is 49, senior operations manager, 8 years at Patriot. He has the office 2 doors down from where mine used to be. He's not a flashy man. He wears the same 3 ties in rotation, and he has never once used the word synergy in a sentence. He's the kind of person who holds a building together and never gets thanked for it. He handed me the envelope. Printed these last night after everyone left. Figured you should have them. Inside were 6 internal emails. Brandon to William, Brandon to Helen Brennan, Brandon to the head of corporate communications. I read them standing in my doorway. The first one was dated 2 weeks before my termination. Brandon to William. Jennings is legacy infrastructure. The Yamamoto relationship needs to be centralized under strategy. One point of contact, digital first. No more flying someone across the Pacific every quarter for a dinner meeting. It's not scalable. The second was Brandon to Helen Brennan responding to Helen's memo about Section 9. Helen, I've reviewed your concerns. This is exactly the kind of legacy friction I was brought in to resolve. We're not going to let a clause from 8 years ago dictate our operational bandwidth. Move forward, move forward. 2 words, $420 million. The third email was the one that mattered. Brandon to William. The morning of my termination, 6:12 a.m., 35 minutes before he sent me the email at 38,000 feet. Jennings won't push back. He's divorced, paying support, 54 years old. He's not going to find another position like this at his age in the sector. He'll grumble, maybe call a lawyer, but he'll settle quietly because he needs the income. We offer a standard severance and move on. I read that 3 times, standing in my doorway in a t-shirt and yesterday's coffee still in the mug on the counter behind me. I adjusted my watch band tension. The pressure was building. Dennis watched my face. "You okay?" he said. "I'm fine. You don't look fine. I look exactly how I look, Dennis." I folded the emails back into the envelope. "Thank you for these." He took a sip of his gas station coffee. "The renewal meeting with Yamamoto is Thursday, 10 days from when he fired you." "I know. He's running the meeting himself, him and his assistant. No translator, no cultural briefing. He told the prep team he'd handle introductions personally because he wanted to, quote, set the tone for a modernized relationship." I said nothing. "Roland, Admiral Yamamoto is flying here personally for this meeting. I know." Dennis looked at me for a long time. "You're not going to do anything, are you? You're just going to let it happen." I picked up my coffee. It was cold. I drank it anyway. "Some things you don't need to push, Dennis. You just need to not be standing in front of them." He left. I closed the door. I put the envelope in the bottom drawer with the partnership agreement. Then I sat at the kitchen table and did absolutely nothing for 7 days. Thursday came. I know what happened in that conference room because Dennis texted me in real time, because Helen Brennan later described it in her report to the board, and because Admiral Yamamoto's formal letter described it in language so precise it read like a court filing. The meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. in Patriot's main conference room, 18th floor, mahogany table 18 feet long, floor-to-ceiling windows facing the James River. The room was set for 8. Brandon had ordered fresh flowers, orchids, not the chrysanthemums that Yamamoto's office always provided for meetings in Osaka, because he didn't know that mattered, and no one was left to tell him. Admiral Hiroshi Yamamoto arrived at 9:48 a.m. He was 75 years old. He wore a dark navy suit. He traveled with a deputy, Sato, whom I'd met in Tokyo the week before, and a translator he did not technically need, but always brought because formality has structure and structure has meaning. He carried his business cards in a silver case. He expected them to be received with both hands. Brandon met him in the lobby. He was wearing a charcoal blazer and sneakers, the kind of sneakers that cost $400 and are supposed to say something about innovation. He extended one hand for a handshake. Yamamoto paused a quarter second. His translator's eyes moved to Sato. Sato's face did not change. Yamamoto shook his hand. They rode the elevator in silence. Brandon attempted small talk about the flight. Yamamoto answered through his translator even though his English is functional. That was the first signal. Dennis said Brandon didn't notice. In the conference room, Brandon took the head of the table. He opened his laptop. His assistant sat to his right, quiet, the way assistants always are when Brandon has decided how something will go. Brandon began the meeting at 10 a.m. Admiral Yamamoto, on behalf of Patriot Systems, I want to welcome you and express how excited we are about this next chapter of our partnership. He mispronounced his name, Yama-O-O-A, 3 syllables. He got the emphasis wrong on every one of them, and he did not correct himself because he did not know he was wrong. Yamamoto's face did not move. Sato's pen stopped writing. Brandon continued. He talked about digital-first communication frameworks and scalable outcomes and stakeholder optimization across defense verticals. He talked for 4 minutes without pausing. He did not ask Admiral Yamamoto about his flight. He did not ask about his family. He did not acknowledge the 16-year history of the relationship or the man who had built it. He did not mention my name. At the 6-minute mark, he opened a folder, removed the $420 million contract renewal, and slid it across the mahogany table toward Admiral Yamamoto. He slid it across the table. In Japanese business culture, You do not slide a document, you stand, you walk to the person. You present it with both hands, a slight bow, the text oriented so the recipient can read it. You wait. This is not ceremony for ceremony's sake. It is how you tell the person across from you that what is in your hands matters enough to carry. Brandon slid a $420 million contract across a table like he was passing the check at a restaurant. Admiral Yamamoto looked at the document. He did not touch it. He looked at Sato. He said something in Japanese. Quiet, 3 words. Sato nodded. Yamamoto stood. He buttoned his jacket. He said one sentence in English, the only English he spoke in the entire meeting. Dennis said it was so quiet that Brandon's assistant had to lean forward to hear it. "Where's Colonel Jennings?" Brandon blinked. "Colonel Jennings is no longer with the company. We've streamlined our thank you. That was it." He turned. Sato collected the translator. They walked out of the conference room, down the hallway, into the elevator. 9 minutes. The meeting had been scheduled for 90. The contract sat on the table where Brandon had slid it. Untouched, unsigned. Dennis texted me at 10:11 a.m. 2 words. He left. I read it at my kitchen table. I set the phone down. I looked at the wall for a while, then I made coffee. The good stuff, not the vending machine kind. I made it slow. The next day, Friday at 4:15 p.m., a courier from the Japanese consulate's commercial attaché arrived at Patriot's front desk. He carried a single envelope, heavy stock, Yamamoto Heavy Industries letterhead. The letter inside was written in both English and Japanese, and it was addressed to the board of directors of Patriot Systems. Helen Brennan was the first person to read it. She told me later that she read it twice, standing in the hallway outside her office, and the second time her hands were shaking. The letter stated that Yamamoto Heavy Industries was formally withdrawing from all pending contract negotiations with Patriot Systems. It cited the absence of the designated relationship officer, named specifically as Colonel Roland Carter Jennings, as a breach of Section 9, Paragraph C of the Master Partnership Agreement. It cited the failure to provide 90 days written notice of a change in liaison designation. It cited the conduct of the renewal meeting as inconsistent with the standards of professional respect Admiral Yamamoto requires of his partners. The final paragraph stated that Patriot Systems had been placed on Yamamoto Heavy Industries' formal exclusion list. No future communications would be accepted. No future meetings would be scheduled. The decision was effective immediately and would be reviewed in no fewer than 5 years. The letter named me twice, in both English and Japanese. The board meeting that followed was swift. Brandon was terminated within 72 hours. William resumed control and began the search for outside leadership. 2 days after the board vote, Wednesday, my phone rang. The caller ID showed a 212 number I didn't recognize. "Colonel Jennings, this is David Whitfield, Executive Counsel for Yamamoto Defense Solutions, U.S. Division. I'm calling on behalf of Admiral Yamamoto's office." I adjusted my watch band tension. I'm listening. "The Admiral has authorized me to extend a formal offer of employment. The position is Regional VP Asia Pacific, Yamamoto Defense Solutions, U.S. Division. The role would oversee all of Yamamoto's defense sector relationships in North America." I looked at the kitchen table, at the drawer where the partnership agreement sat, at 16 years of work folded into paper and locked in wood. "The Admiral also asked me to relay a personal message," Whitfield said. "He said Jennings taiza wa yakusoku wo mamoru hido disu." He asked that I not translate it. He said you would understand. I did understand. "Colonel Jennings is a man who keeps his promises. Tell the Admiral I'm honored," I said, "and tell him I accept." The following Saturday, I drove to Norfolk. Tyler had a game, JV late season. I sat behind home plate, 3rd row. The metal bleacher was cold through my jeans, and the October air had that smell. Cut grass and infield dirt, and something close to winter. Tyler pitched 3 innings, gave up 2 hits, struck out 4. When he released the ball, his wrist snapped down sharp, just like I'd taught him when he was 12. Clean mechanics under pressure. He wasn't dominant, he was steady, consistent. He threw strikes and trusted his defense and didn't try to be something he wasn't. When the game ended, he jogged over to the fence. "You stayed the whole time." I did. He adjusted his cap. "You seem different, Dad. Like you're actually here when you're here." I looked at him, 16 years old, smarter than I was at that age. "I'm gonna keep coming to your games, Tyler." Yeah. I drove home that night with the window cracked. My phone was in my pocket and it wasn't ringing. Nobody needed me to choose between a contract and a kid. I have a new office now, 14th floor, window facing east, a nameplate that says Roland Jennings, Regional VP Asia Pacific. The Yamamoto team gave me a silver pen, Japanese made, engraved with the company seal. I keep it in my front pocket. Sometimes respect doesn't announce itself. It doesn't give a speech or send a memo or put its name on a door. It shows up year after year, flight after flight, in the right chair at the right table, pronouncing the name correctly, waiting for the elder to speak first. And when it's gone, you don't notice the silence right away. You notice the $420 million that walked out the door with it. If you've ever had someone dismiss your experience because they thought their credentials trumped your competence, you know what I'm talking about. If you've watched a younger boss destroy relationships you spent decades building, if you've been written off because of your age while some Harvard MBA thought buzzwords could replace wisdom, then you understand the choice I made on that plane. You can file a lawsuit, make noise, demand recognition, or you can step back, let the mechanism work, and watch competence reveal itself. Sometimes the best revenge is simply being right and having the patience to prove it. The question isn't whether you'll face this moment. The question is what you'll do when your moment comes.